from a young age was always into business and basketball, sports and money. My mom took me to my first card show because I would always go with my dad, and she got to meet Lou and Tyler on Gary's team, and they just spoke to my mom about like how they got started with Gary and what they've learned with Gary and how Gary's treated them. And then from then on out, she'll tell you that that's a big contributor to her confidence in allowing me to do this. So.
VeeFam, what's up? I am back with another episode of the VeeFam Sessions. My name is Mr. Messer. You can call me Rob, and I am here with the one, the only, the head of collectibles for VFriends, Mr. Adam Rips. Rips, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Rob. I'm pumped. I'm a fan of the show. I'm a huge fan of VFriends. I love the mission of documenting the journey of early community and team, and so I'm excited to be here and jam with you for the night.
I love it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. You're in the big guy's office, and you're coming off a banger Fanatics stream where you're pulling fire. So busy, and I really am grateful for your time. As you may know, I like to start this by taking a step back. So if you don't mind giving the 55-second cliff notes on who Adam Rips is prior to ever hearing the name Gary V.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to be here. So thank you again. Adam Rips is really a collector, always been a collector. I, from a younger age, was always into business and basketball, sports and money. And so I was the kid at school, flipping whatever I could, selling things at snack time, doing what I could to make a buck, but I also love sports. So I'd play sports, I'd watch sports. And just like any other kid, at recess and hanging out with friends, you'd collect trading cards. And so we opened packs, ripped cards, and I got really into it. I loved the hobby of trading. I loved collecting things. And, whether it was coins or the pennies that you'd roll wherever you were, I would collect things. And I love the process of collecting. And so got more into trading cards beyond, the capacity of my friends, where I'd start going to the local card show with my dad and kind of making flips and investments where I could. And ultimately just kind of kept that snowball going, a $5 to a $10, and keep snowballing that in. And found that I was really strong in it and I really enjoyed it. And so got really into the sports card world. Definitely a hobby turned business, to where when that market continued to accelerate throughout, before and throughout and after COVID, I was just really, really deep in it. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to meet Gary through that hobby. But I'd say prior to Gary, I'm an athlete, I'm a collector, and I'm a sports fan.
So back, you mentioned in the lunchroom and snacks, did you ever give us something, what was the weirdest thing you sold? Would you sell like the 25-cent bag of chips, fruit snacks, sodas? What were you doing?
I'd say elementary school vibes were twofold. Would sell my two weirdest things. I loved my claim to fame, I think, that I don't give enough credit to, was Madden mobile coins. So there was a really popular mobile game called Madden Mobile, and there was this currency to buy cards, really digital cards to play with in the game. 97 Troy Polamalu or whatever it was. So all of our friends were into it, played in the same leagues, and so I was using eBay as a 10-year-old to grab coins lower and selling to my friends at school. So that, and then we also had a weird snack. This must have been kindergarten or something, where second grade, we would melt Hershey Kisses and swish them between an Oreo and sell them at halftime. All right, at halftime, my goodness, at snack time. So
That's amazing.
Those are the weird ones.
That's wow. So you were concocting new items.
Concocting new items, exactly.
Fascinating. So it was always in you, kind of like someone that we both know. Did you do the card show thing? I know obviously you had an unbelievable presence online, Rips Cards, and I'll pin that up for anybody that doesn't know that side of you. But you did the card show thing?
Yeah, a lot of card shows. Again, started at actually, I'm fortunate that I don't really have a local card shop near me, but one of the larger shows on the East Coast is hosted in White Plains, which is pretty close to home. And so started when, back in the day, it was buying and flipping a Rajon Rondo autograph, $5 to $15, and calling my mom on the way home, Mom, I have $103 in my wallet, this is crazy. And kind of just building up at each show and getting to know all the vendors and building a collection. So big collector and big into those shows early on. That really got me into it and builds a human connection and a story and a trail behind a lot of that. And my first national card show was, I think, 2016 Atlantic City. And I was 13 or 14 at the time, I believe. So obviously really into the hobby and a big fan of the trade shows for building and kind of fostering that growth.
Love that. So, on the mom and dad thing, I know I'm a parent, that we have a lot of parents in the VeeFam. You're obviously a great great guy, smart, fast track to a not only a career, but a career that you seem to love and live for. That's evident just watching you navigate, your job every day. Um,
Thank you.
how like what were mom and dad like? Were they like 100% supportive, driving you and cheering you on for all of these business ventures or in collecting?
Yeah, I couldn't ask for more supportive parents and couldn't be more fortunate for that. It's I think I was able to kind of grow enough within the card world to kind of show them and have them understand that like this is a legitimate thing, and going to these shows and kind of building that reputation in the industry to where there was a reputability there and there was like some proof in the pudding for my parents. And when I ultimately did have the opportunity to meet Gary, I was, sophomore in high school, and you have that hesitancy, but I think for the people who get Gary, they get that he's an awesome guy, and that he likes to take care of the people around him. And fun enough, Gary and I got really close, and it had nothing to do with my parents. It was really just him. Me and Gary met, and me and Gary built that bond. And my parents had never really met him before. And actually, it wasn't until the first VeeCon, I think, that my mom met him, ironically enough, as crazy as that sounds. Other than, hearing a FaceTime that I'm on, or, Gary and I on a meeting, a virtual call, and they're listening in the background type of thing. What really got my mom on board, because I was also applying to colleges. I applied to maybe 6 or 7 schools, and I was, a strong student, but it was never for me. I knew that the system, the system as it is, just isn't what I would want to do, and I didn't think would help me in the same way it could help others. And we went to, I think, the Dallas card show in maybe 2019. My mom took me to my first card show because I would always go with my dad, and she got to meet Lou Janu and Tyler
Mhm.
Schmidt on Gary's team, and they just spoke to my mom about like how they got started with Gary and what they've learned with Gary and how Gary's treated them. And then from then on out, she'll tell you that that's a big contributor to her confidence in allowing me to do this. So it's been an awesome journey, and could not ask for more supportive parents.
Amazing. And I'm going to get to 2019 in a second, but someone foreshadowed your success, and I'd love to double tap into that. So it doesn't take much to looking at your stuff to know that you're a big Giannis guy,
Yes.
huge PC. And for those that aren't aware, Giannis is the top shelf NBA star right now. One of these larger than life stars. Milwaukee Bucks. You have a huge collection, very impressive. You don't need to know anything about basketball to look at what the pictures you posted and think it's impressive. But there's a picture, or there's, excuse me, a video on your Instagram where he's telling you, he's
Yes.
signing some stuff and he's telling you have a future. And he looks at you dead in the eyes and he means it. Like, he's not just talking to any old fan. I would love the quick context on that video.
Goodness, that's an awesome poll. I mean, one of my favorite moments of my life by far. I am a huge fan of Giannis, and I was the person who was like with my friends hanging out when we're like, it's Giannis got drafted in 2013, and he was very scrawny and very raw and not a great talent. He was not supposed to be a great talent, and is kind of like an underdog story. And I was a really big fan of his because of his work ethic and really his raw skill set and his ability and determination to develop that. And I was the person who's like, man, guys, just wait. Giannis is going to be great. Giannis is going to be great. So I had a lot of his cards because the card world was a little bit cheaper to get into back then. So I'm like a 15-year old really collecting Giannis before he was even a starter in the NBA. And so that's an awesome anecdote and story. And I fortunately met the person who conducts his autograph signings. His name's David Archibald, and he has a lot of different clients, but he's been with Giannis pretty much since his rookie year. And I met him because I was buying stuff from him, and we grew, again, when it comes to relationships, grew a great relationship together. And there was a signing, and for the signing, Giannis's brother was coming. His name's Kostas, and David comes to me, he's like, Rips, like, I know you're into the card stuff. I need like 700 Kostas cards like in 3 days for this signing. Like, if you can get them, you can come to the signing. Like I want you to come. I want you to help me come support, meet Giannis, and like I want you to take care of the Kostas stuff. And I'm like, this is the best. I go hound Facebook, Twitter, random forums, not Twitter actually, but random forums, eBay. I gather together like an insane village of Kostas Antetokounmpo rookie cards, Giannis's brother, who was in the league younger than him. And so I got in this room with Giannis, and it's an incredible experience, right? It's me, it's David, it's a couple other, family members and his brother and maybe his girlfriend at the time. But I got in this room and we just start jamming cards, right? Because what a lot of people might not know is that Giannis does collect a lot of his own stuff, and he understands like the rarity of a lot of the cards. And so I showed him, I'm like, again, this is a couple hours in a room together, so I'm trying not to be a fanboy, but I'm showing him some of the cards I have. And I did bring some of them physically, so I showed him the cards. I should have brought that up earlier. I brought some of my favorite cards to Milwaukee with me so I can show him in person. And he looks at me, he's like, bro, how do you, I'm not going to do my Greek accent here, but like, he's like, bro, how did you get these? And I'm like, well, I got this one from a guy in China, and this one I got from this person after we hit it at a break. And he looks at, I showed him the rest of my collection. He's like, bro, like, I've seen your stuff. Like, you have an awesome collection. I'm like, you've seen my stuff? But I showed him the cards, and he just knew the Logo Man. They're one of one with like the best, most coveted Logo Man patch in the NBA. And he looks at me, and he knew how hard they were to get. And he's like, bro, if you got these, then like you've got a future. That was really the thing behind it. Is I showed him the cards that I'd been able to track down from all different types of people all over the world. And he was impressed by the fact that there's probably, 16 or 17-year-old holding up some of the cards that he wishes he had. And he then proposed that he's the funniest guy, man, the nicest, most genuine, funny guy. And he looked at me, he's like, bro, he's like, what are they worth if I sign them? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, so how about I sign them? We sell them. We split the money 50-50. And we never, obviously it was a fun interaction, and we had a great moment together that I'll definitely never forget. But that's it. He was impressed by my ability to track those types of cards down, which is always one of my strengths.
Amazing. And that's a great segue to for the next chapter. So also on your Instagram, February 22nd, 2019, you post a picture courtside at a Knicks game. You write, you're looking at the world's best and my favorite entrepreneur. Amazing to meet Gary V. So that's February 29th. Take us from that picture to how you started acquiring cards for Gary.
Man, this is an amazing story because I've never been able to tell it, or wouldn't even remember it until right now. But I was at a Knicks game with one of my friends, Jonah, and again, I'm pretty young, 16 or 17 in this, but I'm probably 16, but it's halftime, and I see Gary walking through to go to the back tunnel because he was sitting courtside, and I was sitting behind the basket. And let me try to recall here. Sitting behind the basket, Gary's coming down. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, Gary, because no one really knew, he actually wasn't nearly as popular at the time. He obviously was still a popular entrepreneur. And I was a fan of his again, because I'm big into entrepreneurship and I'm big into sports. And he was crossing that chasm still at that time. And the world's best entrepreneur standing next to Gary Vaynerchuk. That's what the caption was. It was more of a pompous little a nod to myself. And then when I got connected with Gary later, that was not the initiation of our friendship. That was before, more coincidental and serendipitous. But as soon as I got to actually know him, I went in and edited my caption to, you're looking at the greatest entrepreneur in the world, Gary Vaynerchuk. But before, it was supposed to be a little more witty, stupid 16-year-old post, which is really, really funny to think back on that. But it wasn't until a couple months later where I sent that to him, and I think it was helpful for him to have a face to the name. But that was more of a thrilling, amazing moment for me when I was able to walk out of the garden and say, I just met Gary V, that night. But that was not the start of our friendship together. Or it was, but it wasn't the reason how we got connected.
The first interaction before the first of many.
Yes.
So I've heard that you entered some kind of a group chat, maybe through Twitter, but ultimately you ended up connecting with someone on the team to acquire cards for Gary. I'd love to double click into that and how you went from just breaking in to becoming the guy, because it's obviously evident at this point you're like Morgan Freeman in Shawshank Redemption. You're a guy that knows how to get things.
I mean, I get a lot of comparisons on the voice with Morgan, but not character wise. So I appreciate that. But yes, Gary. So again, I'm really into the sports card hobby, and I always have been. And I was a fan of Gary's just because of who he was and our similar mindsets, and always was loving what he was putting out. And so when he was getting back into cards, again, one of the main reasons I was a big fan of his is because he started in cards. So I always say that there's two people who I really admired who got their roots in trading cards, which is Gary and Mark Cuban. And so when Gary was getting back into the space, into cards, because he was into it as a kid, when he got back into cards, he started off at the National, I think it was 28 in Cleveland or something like that, where he was there just as walking around with his son. And the rumor started spreading, like, Gary V's in the building, Gary V's in the building. And I send my dad, and I'm like, Dad, try to find Gary. This is what he looks like. Please track him down. And my dad didn't find him. So a lot of funny serendipitous moments of me really just fanboying over Gary because I do love him. But and then, of course, I loved him, before I really got to know him. But it was in 2019 where he thought that he was going to get back into cards again, and he wanted to go to the national and do all of this research and on the ground homework because he didn't want it to be his heart speaking about like, oh, like I need to get back into cards, like I miss it. He wanted it to like really be a thing and something that he thought was going to pop, and he learned and came to the conclusion that this is actually going to pop. And so he put out a tweet and he said, who wants to get into, or who wants to be in a sports card group chat with me, like feeling the itch, something like that. I could probably find the exact one. DM at Lou Janu. And Lou Janu he still works at Vayner, but he was Gary's assistant at the time, his admin. And so I DM Lou, right place, right time, get into one of probably a few group chats that Gary started up. And Gary's starting spewing cards that he wants. Luca Prism PSA 10s, LeBron Chrome PSA 10s, Jerry Rice PSA 9s. And I'm like, Gary, like I've got, in the group chat, I'm like, oh, I've got 86 Lucas. But more importantly, my boy has 90 Lucas, and I saw 110 of them on Facebook because this was a bulk rated card at the time. But there's 200 of them on eBay, and I can get this lot of 60 on Blowout. And I think pretty quickly he kind of understood, like, oh shoot, this person can. I was just in it when I'm not playing basketball. It's when I wasn't in school, and when I was in school. But when I wasn't playing basketball, and when I was not focused at school, I was in the card space. Like that was it. And so I had a lot of different connections and relationships, and knew how to track those cards down, absolutely. And so whenever Gary was looking for a card, he'd shoot me a message. And it didn't take long for him to kind of understand that I was someone who was reliable, can kind of negotiate pretty well as well. We both took pride in that same mindset of, that trash talk mindset. Like we play it all the time to this day with people trying to get, having the fun of negotiation. So when it came to, tracking down some of these cards for him, he would kind of tell me what he would want. I'd be able to find them, whether it was like a more common card or a more rare card, kind of take that time burden off of him and provide that service at, that work for free mindset of like, trying to do whatever I could, working down the best price. Like I lived for the excitement of Gary's like, all right, I want LeBron Chromes at 1,100. I'm like, Gary, got you two at 10,000 at 1,050. Like I got you one at 975, and that excitement. So we had that together. And so from there on out was definitely starting off with cards, but he trusted me and I trusted him, and that friendship continued to grow with FaceTimes for different deals. And came into the office once. I came in a stupid button down or little short sleeve button down with khaki shorts, thinking that was like something I needed to do. But
the culture.
Came into the office and dropped him off the cards and got to connect for a good 10 minutes. And from there, again, just really accelerated with not only cards, but just a real friendship and chemistry together. And now, I mean, it's like knowing how big of a fan I was, it is very wild to look back. Because I remember the first time I walked into the office, like your jaw drops, you're like, this is the office. So the fact that I'm stealing his office at 7:00 or whatever time it is right now on a Friday night, it's always, I don't take it lightly. It's a real honor.
Yeah, well, I mean, that answer took one of my questions right out of my mouth. Do you ever just pinch yourself? Because like you're literally sitting in what most people like is like their Disneyland, like their Magic Kingdom that they want to take a picture of, right? And here's you like in the middle of a Fanatics live, like I'm just gonna go get a couple things from Gary's office and like give it away. Yeah, so like my question was like, are you like so close to it that it doesn't even phase you, or do you still like have these like pinch me moments where you're like,
yeah, definitely both. I mean, definitely second nature, and I think I'd never try to lose that mindset and perspective of like, I work every day knowing that there's 1,000 people who would love to be, more than 1,000 obviously, but who would love to get connected with Gary and have that type of relationship. So like I get to see that from kind of inside the bottle, and I never take that lightly, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity and what I get to do every single day. And then at the same time, like I was, it's a lot of years in sports. It's a very specific skill set, so to speak, in sports cards, and I definitely didn't take the opportunity with Gary lightly. So as soon as I kind of got my foot in the door, I'm like, I'm full steam ahead, and I'm gonna make sure that we can get closer together. And I'm definitely back then wouldn't have imagined that it's Jets games together and flights together and all this insane Fanatics live and getting chokehold and thrown down on Fanatics and whatever else the heck we do together. But he's absolutely a brother to me, and so in that regard, it's like, gosh, this guy's like one of my best friends, and so grateful for that. But at the same time, could not have pictured that a few years ago. So I always like to keep the mindset of 15-year-old Adam, just kind of reflecting and being grateful for the opportunity. And never, I mean, still, grateful every day and trying to get better every day. Nothing's secured because Gary threatens me to rips your fire and whatever all the time as jokes.
You probably.
Absolutely super fortunate. A lot of hard work, and I'm doing my best to still get better every day.
I love that. So I just want to, for the audience, and we do have a huge subset that is new through Fanatics Live, through the NFTs, to just kind of put a couple bullet points on this era. For me, it was the first time I had been following Gary, but it was the first time where I ever drank the juice and like financially was advantageous because of him. So he was yelling Giannis. I don't know where in your timeline that was, but I was like, I collected cards as a kid, but I'm gonna pass. And then I saw what happened to Giannis, and I was like, holy wow. And then he was screaming Luca from the rooftops, Luca, Luca, Luca. That's when I got in, and then the Trae Young, and then he started talking about other niches. So, and it just exploded. And then he got louder and louder and louder, and the card market boomed. Mbappe,
Yep.
soccer, WWF, like everything was on fire 2019, 2020, 2021 in the card market. And like NFTs, Gary was a huge part of that. And a lot of the spotlight was on him. So I just wanted to create that context for the audience. Like, so NFTs was for a lot of people was like their people's second act of listening to Gary and following Gary on this roller coaster ride.
And for many more, I mean, financially probably right, but I mean, he's put out advice for so many years where
right.
It's the acumen of trust, but financially, I would definitely agree.
Plus with the collectible tie-in. So let's go to that era. Speaking of NFTs, so at some point you get officially hired, or maybe unofficially. When did that go down? Like, when was your first
Of course,
pen and paper?
My relationship with Gary really began in mid-20, and from 2019 for about a year and a half, probably almost 2 years. We were just really close buddies, and I would help him get cards, right? And I'm not taking a vig, or I'm not making money on any of this. I'm building my relationship with him, and I'm having a lot of fun. Over those couple of years, we got really close, and I was still, a high school student, right? I'm texting Gary, buying him cards from my chemistry class in sophomore year. And, through COVID, my junior, senior of high school, which is wild, but through COVID, just had a lot of time to really bond with Gary and find him cards and spend a lot of time on that type of stuff. So there were some fun conversations with Gary and I of like how soon can I come on board at Vayner? And it wasn't even because I'd be working in a different capacity. I think he just genuinely, wanted me to hop on board and get to know the world and the crew and be in the office as soon as I can. And longer story short, in March of 2021 was when I was brought on as a full-time Vayner media employee. That was, I think, more just to be on the books. I wasn't working with the media agency, but it was really Gary saying, putting the best opportunity he could in front of me, right? When I'm on a call with him and he's saying, one second. Good. When I'm on a call with him and he's saying, I want you to be able to learn whatever you want, right? I want you to, like, you can work with some of the media teams. You can work with the Vayner sports teams. You can work with the small business teams. You work with the new business teams. You work with the big clients. He wanted this to be like a full-time job / internship for me, which was like the best possible opportunity I could have pictured. And so I think I hung up the phone and like this guy's offering me my dream job, and I haven't even graduated high school yet. Like, there's no need for college at this point. And so that's where we all I did do a community college thing to get an associate's, but that's kind of where we netted out. And so in 2021, he brought me on to VaynerMedia, but it was really a learning experience / full-time sports card still. So organization, purchasing, literally whatever I could possibly help him with, that was kind of the role. And as time progressed, that's March of 2021, and everyone knows VFriends launched May of 2021. And there was a lull where I was not on the VFriends team at launch. I was supportive of Gary. I was listening to the podcast. All right, one ETH in my wallet, I'm going to do this thing, one ETH in my wallet. And so I'm on OpenSea, as confused, or not OpenSea, I'm on VFriends.com watching those squiggles, as confused as everybody else is, not a VFriends team member, more as a collector and supporter of Gary. So I grabbed a couple at the mint and was on Vayner at that time, working closely with him, but not on the VFriends team. And it was in July of 2021, where basically, Gary was spending much more time in Web3 and blockchain and NFTs. And I was just kind of there like, Gary, you're not spending as much time. Like he still does a lot with cards. I'm like, you're not spending as much time in cards as you were like during, these prior months/years. And I'm like sitting there, like, there's old graphics I could probably send you to slip in of like me volunteer. I'm like finding work to do. I'm like, Gary, your stuff is good. Like you got cards out the wazoo. They're all sorted. They're here. Like the people who needed help, they're good. So I'd be like, I saw Spiffy Salmon, and I'd make like a collage of like use Gary's sports cards with the VFriends. So I'm like, these are the 6 spiffiest NBA players, and these are the rookie cards you have, and it'd be like a big image, and then I'd be like, all right, big game bandicoots up, like Gary, here's like your Kobe rookie card, and like a graphic sharing more about his 81-point game and Wilt's 100-point game, and all those like the connecting his cards to VFriends, because I'm like, I don't know what else I can be helpful with right now apart from connecting his cards and VFriends, purely out of, and he would post them on his stories and I'd get excited and all that fun stuff. But ultimately, I get a DM, RC, he wanted me to learn more about NFTs. So I start more learning, like, first for questions, like, learn Axie Infinity, give me the 411, like, tell me what's good there. Then it's like, Rips, you need to learn CryptoPunks. My first day in this office, or maybe second day in this office, is sports card sorting day. He's like, Rips, sit down, we eat some bagels. It's with his brother AJ. He's like, you got to get a CryptoPunk. I'm like, what's a CryptoPunk? He's like, do you have any ETH? I'm like, what the heck is ETH? And then his brother starts talking about Ethereum. I'm like, what's Ethereum? They're like, it's the same thing. Like, oh, okay, good. But we started talking more about NFTs as time kind of went on. And I look at my phone one day and it's a text from Gary. He's like, Andy, this is Rips. Like, Rips is one of us. He's good. He's sharp. Use him until he calls you uncle. And kind of from that point on, I was informally on the VFriends team since really July of 2021. And that's kind of been the full-time thing since then. I don't know exactly when it was head of collect. The process was, it was VFriends, Swiss Army knife, however I can help. And that's still really the case, but more specific to trading cards when we did the release of the first set, and we needed, strategists and rarities and colors and print runs and all that behind the set. So that was definitely my doing. And then as the card world the cards and collectibles continued to grow within VFriends, that's when I became more designated as a full-time collectibles in-house human being. But I don't know the exact timing. It's a nice transition and definitely really full circle. But March of 2021 was when I was really working full-time for Gary, but had really been with him since 20.
What a run. When you entered the fold there, was Series 1, the cards already on the docket? Or is that something that came in after you were on the team, quote unquote?
So I think cards were always on the docket, like the concept of cards and collectibles, but that specific set wasn't quite in the works. Like, look, I think it's always in Gary's head, and it's in their heads that like these cards will exist in due time, but it wasn't something like Rips, you're in, like, we have this set built out, we need your help with rarities. It was definitely built from scratch. But the concept of cards was always there. I wasn't in there and like, oh guys, we should make cards. Like, cards were always going to happen. And I'm happy to talk more to that. But my first actual task, and it's when, there may be 6 people on VFriends at the time or something like that. But one of my first calls, actually, Sorcerer Scholarship was really early for me. Not from like a decision standpoint, but like there's a Sorcerer Scholar committee, and I'm filtering emails and sending emails, and I would be on the rejection and acceptance letters coming from Adam Riffs because it was early days. But Sorcerer Scholar was an early one for me. And one of my first like real calls and missions was with Uno. And I get into a call, or I get into an email, like Andy's like, Rips, like, I'm connecting you with Ray Adler, the president or VP or whatever it is of games at worldwide at Uno. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, I've been here for a week. But obviously stepped right into it. Took a lot of pride in the Uno collab, which I still really love to this day, and I think is pretty epic. But that was probably my first real collectible undertaking at VFriends, and also I think pretty underrated in the VFriends world, and I think will still be looked upon positively in due time or in the long term. But yeah, from the gut, it was just full trust in myself, and I never took that lightly. So that was kind of the first mission that I had within the VFriends collectibles world.
What a cool first task.
Absolutely. Like, I'm building, like, are you kidding me? I'm building an Uno deck, like, Jesus. So from that point, I'm like, this place is pretty epic, and I'm going to do what I can to stay here.
Epic. That was that was a real nice treat, especially at the price point at that time. I think it was like $25,
Yeah, I
and
believe that's right. And it was, I mean, to us and to them, the fact that they never even really thought of like, oh, like people like opening packs. Like we introduced the idea of alternating the foil card from box to box. They never done a randomly inserted card before, and it was really awesome to see and really awesome to work on. So that was really really fun and a first of its kind. And I still consider to be one of like the fun, really big for the VFriends brand to have an Uno deck, and pretty incredible. But I love the concept of that random foil card and some of the games. We were in these rooms for, we had a special rule card, and Gary's like, I have a special connection with Sharing Squirrel for this reason, but we're like, what should this special rule card be? And we're sharing all different types of ideas. And Gary goes like, Sharing Squirrel, because, and like, here's what you have to do. I got it. He's like, I got it. Sharing Squirrel. If you get the card played on you, you have to take a selfie of your whole hand and post it on social media with hashtag VFriends cards, And I'm like, Gary, like, no one's going to want that. And he's like, that's the point. Like, I was blanking out. He's like, that's the point, Rips. He's like, no one wants that card played on them. I'm like, oh, like, I have to show, like, everyone's going to see what cards they have. Like, so I caught on. That was a pretty early moment for me. So that Sharing Squirrel card has a fun place in my heart.
That's amazing. I'm not in the business of putting people on the spot for any information that might be private, but is there, so you don't have to share the number if there is a number, but is there a known number of how many Gary B foils there are in circulation?
No, there's no number. I think it is a tier. It's the only tier 1 card, and we wanted to have that be like the ultimate chase. So it is pretty exceedingly rare. But no, there's not an exact number out there.
Got it. So March 22 was early March 22. So roughly 2 years ago from the time we're talking now, was one of these epic weeks of Gary getting, a lot of face to camera, getting people riled up about VFriends, doing what he does best and just getting people excited, for a few things. One was the series 2 reveal.
Yep.
And the other was he teased it as collectors are going to love this. And on March 8th, 2022, the Series 1 Zero Cool announcement was made, 2-day auction, which is a cool homage to the Dutch auction from the Series 1 NFT.
Yes.
Which I think a lot of people don't put that together. So I would love to, wherever you want to take the origin story from finding Zero Cool or, making it a premium product, I'll let you run with that. But I'd love to talk about that era of the creation and the launch of that.
Absolutely. I mean, what an incredible time. And the best part is that it still feels as exciting, if not more exciting now than it did back then. But I think with VeeFriends, we had a really holistic view on the collectibles industry and narrative of something we really want to compete in. Not only within the Web3 world, but within the IP and mainstream world. And so Gary always knew that these cards would exist. And I think we did have a really holistic approach with the cards, right? So there was the Series 1 premium luxury. We pictured a world in which, there's the same way that the Series 1 NFTs are the creme de la creme, the top notch, the grails of those collectibles. We wanted there to be a way for those to be collected physically for 2 reasons. One, because there were a lot of people who may have missed out on the NFTs and, couldn't afford the NFTs. And then we knew that people who had the NFTs would want to open packs and make trades and track down the NFT that they own. And it made all the sense in the world to do something that was really high end and luxury to complement and to show the world like these Series 1s are really the North Star in the VFriends ecosystem. And we were working on Series 1 and Series 2 cards, the trading card game cards, pretty much in parallel, with an ultimate vision of Series 1 being hyper premium and collectible, using the original artwork, paying homage to the NFTs, and working closely with that group, being much more limited run with only 1,000 boxes made, being transparent, right? So the blockchain, if anyone's not a card collector, no one ever shares. Very limited to people. Very rarely does any brand share how much of a product they're making, and it's never really made so clear. With the blockchain and the community we have, we're going to tell them exactly, and this was us in collaboration with Zero Cool, and we can talk more about that. But wanted to be transparent about how much of the product we were making, how much of each card exists, because that was more in tone with what was going on with blockchain. It's like transparency forward. And so Series
Interesting.
1 was
Yep.
always intended to be really low print, high end, um, premium paper, premium cardstock, original drawings, purely collectible, um, both for the VFriends enthusiasts who want the original cards and for the NFT enthusiasts who want to pair them up with their cards. So that was really awesome for us. And the Dutch auction format, Josh Luber at Fanatics, who was operating Zero Cool, is a big proponent of the Dutch auction format. So he really was the one who kind of came to us with that, and we all agreed. And I still think to this day it's one of the best ways that you can drop a product. But was definitely on board with that. And at the same time, we're like, all right, so we have the Series 1 product that we're developing, and that's going to be really low print and high attention. And the first one that we dropped, both for VFriends and for Zero Cool, at the same time, had the vision of the trading card game being a huge splash for VFriends, for Web3, and for trading cards, for the brand to expand more. I mean, the trading card game industry is completely underrated compared to the sports card world, especially with where Gary's from. It's a lot of card collectors, but for sports collectors, the trading card game world is massive. We built them both in parallel. Series 1 was going to be high end and premium. Series 2 was going to be accessible, still have that same fun of element chase and collecting your characters, but now can be given to friends, to family, to kids, to daughters, to nieces, to nephews, to whatever it may be. And I think for us, one of the big parts of both of these, but specifically the card game, was in Series 1 with NFTs, people can buy their character that they wanted on VFriends.com. And so we felt that people would want that matching card. And then with the trading card game, it was a random reveal in Series 2. And this was a sneak attack. I mean, we were like, all right, we're dropping Series 2, but bang, everyone who purchases an NFT gets a free box of
Yep.
cards
Free
on top.
box.
And so that's, I mean, gosh, I can talk about this all freaking day. But one of the main things was broader accessibility, actually using the VFriends, right? So these cards are playable, and there is a game attached. And so actually being able to interact and use the different characters against each other and compete, which is a huge thing for VFriends and a part of the brand and the messaging. So the competition is big. And to me, one of the most important things is that now when you mint a random NFT, you're minting 52 other VFriends when you open up your box. And now all of a sudden someone's not only caring about that one reveal, and they're not only getting one reveal, but now they get to care, collect, and reveal 52 other cards for their collection and begin that journey too. And that was really, really special. So I'm excited to dive more into those, because I know it's pretty wild to think that it's 2 years ago. In some ways it feels a lot longer, and sometimes in some ways it feels shorter, but built in parallel for two different purposes that I think have held really true to this day.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point and perspective about minting the characters, because it does hit you in a different way. And by the way, obviously the Series 2 art versus the Series 1 art, totally different.
Of course.
And like there's a lot of characters. Like you don't look like, I never looked at like a sponge. I just never did. And then I saw the card and all the signatures, and I was like, holy smokes, like this is a really cool character.
And same goes for something. This was a fun one too when we're thinking about the sets and the rarities. But like, I like to use legendary Lemur, which, shout out Corso. Apart from Corso's infatuation with his character, did not have much mojo going for the Lemur. And then all of a sudden, Lemur is one of the 10 rarest cards to find, and people are like, oh, like the Lemur is a real character now. And so it was a fun way to kind of share some love with a lot of the characters with the different scores, and it's been an absolute blast.
So is the Lemur a tier 1 because of Corso?
I would be lying if I said yes, and I'd be lying if I said yes. I think Corso, I can't exactly recall, but it's more of the word legendary. Legendary is a big thing in the trading card game. It's only meant to be rare, and so the Lemur falls in there because it's a top 10 rare. I want Corso to get all the flowers, and maybe there was some inkling of, Corso likes this. It was Corso likes it, and the community likes it a lot, and because it's around, like, it could have been possible, but primarily was the legendary trait and wanting that card to be really hard to come by.
Got it. That makes total sense too. A quick aside, I had Mikey Cloca, and he was telling me on how he'll make designs and put in the Lemur, send it to Corso, knowing that it's going to get slashed. Epic. So, I mean, it's nice to think of Series 1 and Series 2, although they're totally different products in the same, for the purposes of like historical conversation, to think of them as kind of one bucket. So on Series 1, it closed 800 boxes at 20 from like Josh and that side, or maybe from your guys' table. Did you guys have a number in your head of where you thought like it might end up, or was it just totally like no one knew?
Nobody knew. That's the best part of it. It's the absolute best part of the way it was released, is that we don't set the price. There is very minimal, if any, element of any greed or any money making. And I mean, of course, there's money involved. So you know what I mean. Of like, we don't set the price. The community doesn't set the price. Zero Cool doesn't set the price. Fanatics, like, this is set. It's made for the community and bought by the community, and so the price should be set by the community. There's probably, we always would have these fun little games where, you've seen it on Fanatics, where we'd write something on paper or press enter, in a Google Meet. And if I look back, there's a small chance I could find something like that. But there was no expectation, because again, the point wasn't, of course there's curiosity, but it wasn't made for the money, and there was no way to know, right? So we didn't have any visibility into that. I remember the anticipation waiting to get that email from Fanatics on what it would close at, or what it did close at. But even myself, I mean, look, I worked on this thing. I believe in these things. I still have these things. Like, I bought these things, and I was putting bids in it. You'd see VFriends people were like, oh, there's only 10 cards. Like, maybe it's like $50. But then, have like the sports collectors who are like, oh, shoot, like, this is only 10 cards. Like, this is big. So it was really funny to see that kind of crossover, because they knew by the box, and by the cards inside and the rarities and all of that. It was much more like what we would refer to as like a national treasures or a flawless combination. So we had no price in mind. No one could have expected it. I think we were all like, so what I was saying is I was putting bids at $50 and $1,000 and $2,000. I'm like, I need to get one. So like, I probably had bids in like a $10,000 or like whatever it was. I think that's how a lot of us played it, is just I put up bids at all different types of places, because just wanted to make sure that I could scoop X amount at X price. But I think the price did make a lot of sense, and I'm glad that it's reflected well in the last few years, and they're still selling significantly stronger. And there's such a sustained demand for them, because the deflationary aspect of them is unmatched, right? So every time one of these gets open, the rest gets scarcer, and there's only so many boxes, and I see that projection continuing to kind of move in that direction.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that's always in the back of my. I mean, it's fun and as amazing as the vibe is when a box is broken. It's always in the back of my head, like, this is not going to be forever.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a point where they dry up a little bit more, no matter what product it is, and that's when the value continues to go up. But the community aspect to this day, from 2 years ago to now, there's never been a dull moment when a box of cards is opened, and that's really what matters the most.
And it is cool to look back. I think it was what was with Josh Luber, the first box ever broken. Gary did a video. I think the first card ever pulled was a Resourceful Robin, because I think I remember that from that video, because I thought that's a cool little fact. But yeah, so for those of you listening, if you're, just to catch you up, 800 people all bought 800 boxes were all sold for $2,150 right from the source. Everything else since then has been secondary. I think in the couple weeks after, they went up to 15K.
Oh yeah,
obviously they fluctuated a crazy amount since then. On March 1st, 20 box breaks are roughly $6,000 a box. So very, very cool point to remind us of that. Received a free box of Series 2 cards. Was that always the plan, or was that a decision that was...
It was not always the plan, but once it was the plan, like, the picture came together over time. So the series, it was going to be, I mean, back in the early days, there were thoughts of like, should we do figurines, and should it be a random figurine or a actual figurine that matches the character? So figures were definitely in there, that, the types that Gary's got behind them to match your characters, and how are we boxing those, and how are we shipping those? And it didn't take long for us to land on cards. And then when we landed on cards, it was more of, should we make a really premium card and slab it and send it to them of their character? Or should we go more of a random approach with one card? So we were definitely thinking more character oriented at first. And at first I'm thinking, I'm saying, maybe in a meeting or two, it was not for a long duration of time. All of that to say, we all pretty much landed on the trading card game as a really substantial. We knew that's going to be a substantial industry for us to play in. And Gary really did want to over deliver on those NFTs. I know, if anyone can recall, it was a very huge amount of hype behind the drop, just like many other drops at that point, to the point where, the resale NFTs probably were like $3,000, $4,000 after they sold out at $1,000. And the box of cards is more of an afterthought, for sure. And we landed on wanting to introduce a trading card game, taking more of that Pokemon type step into that industry, and also really increasing the amount of cards. So it was in a short period was at that one card, memento graded, but quickly moved into we need people to play the game and interact with the characters. We need people to care about more than the character that they already get. And we need people to have the excitement of being able to give the packs to player, open the packs and unbox it. It's new for a lot of people. It brings back childhood memories for a lot of people. It's pretty in line with a lot of Gary's audience as well. And so it made all the sense in the world. But there were times where we're, going back and forth on how many cards should be used. And for many months, we worked out the strategy of the set with 52 cards to match the amount of cards in a playing card deck. And it was really important to us that there are 13 packs, so that there are those 13. I think they came to us like we want to do, 6 packs of 7 and 4 packs of 13. But we pushed for those 13 packs because we want as many of those moments as possible and be able to give as many packs we want as possible. So it wasn't always cards, but it didn't take long to get there for the Series 2 drop and realize that it was the right move for us to make.
I never thought about the 52. That makes so much sense.
Yep, because it was modeled after war. So the math that ties to war of like what's the chance of getting an 8 in the same, like all the math ties back to what's having the ample and right amount of wars to make the game right. And again, the game's taken a lot of evolution, and we can go down that route too. But again, the cards were always in the works and were always in the plans, but once we landed on cards, which didn't take long, it was then a process of building out the Series 1 and Series 2 in tandem to make the most sense for the IP and the community.
Yeah, at least in my perspective, two of the fascinating times, at least in my opinion, that I would love to be a fly on the wall. Obviously, the Malibu trip where I know there's footage where he's actually creating the characters, drawing the characters.
Me too.
And then the second time is throughout this process, of which I hope I'll give you time to expand on the layout for this game, for these characters, the rarities, the tiers, because up until this point, 3 years later, nothing really has driven characters in such a large quantity in the community's eyes than this game. The tiers, the scores. Yes, a collab here and there, or a rare robot sticker, but like nothing has really given us a perspective of who's a top character and who's not than this game. So I would love to, and I know you're at the table, so I'd love to hear about your process of whether it's creating the sub scores or who's going to be tier 1. I'd love for you to expand on any part of that, of the thought process when you were conceiving the set and game.
Absolutely, man, what a process it was. I'd start by saying what makes the cards really special, both sets, is that it's really the only ways that people can collect every VFriends character. So super stickers, pins, wine, figurines, whatever it may be. There's more strategic and one-off rollouts of characters, as opposed to the cards, which is you got every card in the set ready to go, like have at it. And the set collecting, we always knew was going to be a part of what drove so much excitement around the set, that no matter what character it was, there'd be a following for them. And I still think it happens all the time where people open a pack and now they like the character and they love it and they realize it's a thing. Oh, I've never seen an Amrine before. Like, this character is awesome. So there's a lot of joy in that. As far as the rarities, Series 1 and Series 2, the purpose, whether people realize it now or they don't, or it pays dividends down the road or whatever it is, it's all really about driving awareness back to the VFriends Series 1 rarity set. So one of the more fun things is Series 2 NFTs for VFriends don't have very rare, epic, spectacular backgrounds. Or core. They are more generic. They have background scenes. There's rare background scenes and all of that, which is a whole other element of rarity, but it doesn't follow the same color structure. But the Series 2 cards still follow the same structure as Series 1 cards and Series 1 NFTs. And it's really about how can we make sure that this rarity hierarchy matters to people in the collectible space, in the collector's world. And so the rarity was always about core, rare, very rare, epic, spectacular. There's been some times where that isn't the case for specific and certain reasons, but where and when we can, we want to make sure that is emphasized and a part of the collecting, because we think that long term, as hopefully VFriends continues to grow, as collectibles continue to grow, and both of those things together, digital and physical, that it will roll all the way back to the Series 1 NFTs as being important, and the spectaculars being the pinnacle of those, right? So when we're on Fanatics flipping out about hitting a spectacular 1 of 1, you better bet that in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years that those collectors who have been with us, those grails are going to be the spectaculars, right? So that's where a lot of the long-term vision is for the rarities, and that's going to take a long time for us to land on. To the core set, we love set collecting. Set collecting is a huge part of trading cards and the hobby, and opening packs and doing it with friends and family and all of that fun stuff. And so the character rarity came into play. So as we had these 251 characters, we had the 251 characters on a spreadsheet, and it was really a workshop with me and D. Gary of where each of these characters fall into which tier of rarity, with a main focus of 2 things. Most importantly, deck building. Patient Panda is throughout the set. Befuddled Burglar is throughout the set. Thoughtful 300 Harpic is throughout the set. Empathy Elephant. All these characters are throughout the set for 2 reasons. Again, one, because people need strong cards in the deck. We don't want VFriends card game to be a pay-to-play event, right? We don't want people the rich to get richer and them to win the biggest we want anyone who rips their packs to have a nice deck and be able to go play. And on that same note, these characters are big points of emphasis for VFriends, right? We want to develop them. We want every 9-year-old or 19-year-old or 49-year-old or 89-year-old to know what Empathy Elephant is. And so if that card was impossible to find, then it might not have that same amount, that same recollection, right? Befuddled Burglar obviously has to be a strong score in the card game. There's all those fun little things with Energetic Electric Eel has 25 stamina, and Skilled Skeleton has 25 skills. So there's a lot of that mini character development. But as far as rarities, wanted to make sure that every single rarity tier had strong and weak cards, so that anyone could open a box and have a really nice deck to actually play with. So that was element number 1, and not having all the 50s be the most common. And we wanted it to be a not pay to play, an exciting thing for anyone to open and find some good cards. And element number 2 is which characters make sense to put in each tier, right? So what are the ones that should be the hardest to find? What should be the most prestigious? And what should be the most available? And so again, it does get pretty intricate, and a lot of characters kind of moved and swapped around, but we landed on those 10 that are the hardest to find. And again, they do generally make sense, at least to me, of course, but Rare Robot, right? The Black Cat, right. The Persian Cat is the ultimate hard, we don't want everyone to have the hardest card in the game. And so that's going to be the strongest card in the game. So that's going to be one of the hardest ones to find. And so Perfect Persian Cat is the only perfect 75, which was obviously, that's a Gary decision, and making that character. Talk about a character that had no steam, 0 before the
case in point right there.
Lemur. Talk about a character that really, we had Cynical Cat, we had a couple of different cats. I'm like, Perfect Persian Cat now is has its space in the trading card game world, and that's a really strong development point for that character. And so it was a spreadsheet that Gary had, and he wrote the character scores on every card. And there were adjustments from, what's their aura, what's their skill, what's their stamina. There were adjustments from there to make the gameplay a little more coherent with the amount of ties. There was I think there was a time where it was maybe 30 to 75 instead of 50 to 75. And after doing the math of making the game as playable and good and strong as possible, to have ties, to not have ties, then consolidated it in. But I think rarity, there's not a thing in the game that wasn't fully thought out, and it's something I'm pretty excited about and proud about. The gameplay is a whole other component, right? Because the evolution has been awesome in my opinion, but back then it was just war, and it was much more about, I think, the collectability, and we're growing more and more into the gameplay facet. But it was always important that the characters were in their slot for a reason, that they had specific traits for a reason, and specific scores for a reason, and that they were accessible in all different types. A Black Cat is a 74 and a Panda is a 74. The cat will rock the Panda's world because it's way rarer, but in the gameplay, it's about making sure that everyone can participate.
So did you guys have this? Did you envision this type of rule set for gameplay when you were creating the Aura, Skill, and Stamina, and then you just didn't release it to July of 23?
A bit of both.
Okay.
So the most important element of the gameplay to us and to Gary was that, or to the cards, was that people can play with them. And we were very, obviously NFT, still obviously, but very NFT focused at the time. and had a lot going on with Series 2. And Gary put Aura skill, if it was just going to be war, there would have been one big bubble that had a number on it, right? So we envisioned elements of gameplay, of battling with those three, had had conversations with game developers and with ourselves and our internal team of, what there was different names that went. There was once it was work ethic, like emotional quotient, like there was all types of, instead of aura skill, stamina. So everything was kind of adjusted over time. And the game was, those cards were built knowing that those three traits would be the exact mechanics were developed with super awesome games. Not more recently, but at the time it was, this is war. Kids will get this, families will get this, they'll be able to play it and understand it. Let's make sure they get the cards, they care about the characters. Let's focus on a great Series 2 launch, and we're going to have evolution over time. And of course, that's what I'm most excited about, especially that first wave. But at first it was let's make sure that this is simple. These cards are collectible, you can play them as war, and the development was pretty rampant from there, and certainly fun. And we just had a game night last night in the office actually. But yeah, I was looking back at some of those old card graphics designs, and it's been all over the place. As far not all over the place, it's a bad way to say it, but like, different scores. A decisive duck, is a rock star now, and like that, I think the card's like a 53. So I don't know if I might have forgotten to say it, but from point zero, not even just community facing, internal facing, it was like, this is not an internal hierarchy of the card's character scores. Mm-hmm. I can see how, in some ways there are elements of that make sense, but perfect Persian cat, I would put black. I guess there's so many, there's no top whatevers, but right. I'm like, black cat, I'm taking all day over the perfect Persian cat. Yeah, decisive duck, I'm probably like, fluid. I'm putting decisive duck at 53 over a lot of other characters, even though that one's grown over time. But Jolly Jacko's at 50, right? So like all this stuff evolves, and I think one of the most fun elements of this trading card game will be people in 10 years looking back at this original set and being like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe Rational Rattlesnake was only a 52. Like no one wanted, and right, so it's a fascinating thing. Like, oh my gosh, there's only 14 rattlesnakes created. I'm making that up because this card, no one really, collected it as heavy because it's a 52, but now Rattlesnake had an insane collaboration with whatever, and people, or a crazy feature film. Obviously, there's nothing that I'm aware of in the works like a feature film for Rational Rattlesnake, but it's going to be so fun for people to look back at these like quote unquote rankings. Gary B would have been higher than a 66, right? So there's all types of things that came into play with gameplay. And right, like a big element of that is like we needed scores that made the game playable, right? So if Gary B needed to be a 66 because we needed another 66, like that was the case. And if we needed more 50s and 50, like so many 55s and 53s, so that's why it was never really a public hierarchy or anything like that, and it wasn't an internal rankings because there were so many gameplay elements that came in apart from just simply ranking the characters. But definitely a really fun process, fun to match some of them up with certain traits like the skilled skeleton and the eel and the consistent cougar with the strong stamina. So a lot of that fun stuff coming into play too.
Yeah, and a lot of, like I said, like anything, it doesn't really hit you until you're in a game, and you see like, oh, balanced beetles, all 20s, like just like all those little intricacies, and make it so fun, especially for people paying attention.
Tough to Beat a Worm from the Dirt's one of my favorites personally because there's such a dynamic, right? Because you have Tough to Beat a Worm, like he's tough to beat, but he's also in the dirt. And so I'm like, gosh, we're like, is this character going to be a 73 or is he going to be in the dirt? And we went more towards the dirt, and he gets beat up. He gets beat on a little bit. So that's going to be a fun one too. But Tough to Beat a Worm from the dirt, I thought it's like, man, where does this character fall? But yeah, a lot of fun elements like that.
Man, and it'll be, like you said, it'll be fun to have this conversation in 5 years. The next big bar is when the gameplay was released. But before we go there, I have to take a step back to, I guess I'm gonna hit both VCons in one. I remember VCon 1, the card presence is at the Gary's Garage Sale. I think that's what it was called back then.
The flea market.
Flea market. Now it's Gary's Garage Sale.
Yep.
It was kind of bleak at most. Like there was a couple card tables that I remember, and there was a handful maybe of Series 1 cards, at the table. It wasn't huge on the radar yet. It was very new. Flash forward to VeeCon 23, it's everywhere, almost every table at the Gary's Garage Sale. Um, there are people ripping boxes
Yep.
all over. Series 1, Series 2. There's a card night that really exploded. And for me, that was a big moment because the energy was off the charts there. There's an Uno tournament. Like, it is just night and day. And I'm not even getting into Cardboard Summer yet, just from VeeCon 1 to VeeCon 2. Talk to me like about your realization when you saw that actually play out. Is that what you were expecting, or what? Like,
Yeah, I think it's the perfect microcosm of Series 1 and Series 2 trading cards. VCon 1 is the Series 1 trading cards, right? Where you just have a very limited run of cards, high, tough to find, premium, limited run, and it's not as community based, or obviously it's community based, but it's not as, community forward and accessible. And, a couple vendors, a couple box breaks, and really high values probably at the time as well. It was the first VCon, less of an emphasis on the cards and collectibles and more of throwing an incredible event. And so Series 1 was definitely more contained. And we launched a trading card game to bring more community, more accessibility, more cards into the ecosystem. And we saw that 100% come into play at VCon, where people can play the game, they can rip packs, they can find characters, they can pull one-of-ones. And so to me was no surprise. I think, Series 1, premium, pretty tight-knit at the first VCon. When Series 2 came out, now everyone could play. Now everyone can open their packs. Now everyone can find their characters and partake. And I think that was a huge gateway to people learning about the cards at VCon, right? So, of course, the point of the cards is that we can push that into the sports card and collectibles world. And of course, it's for the VFriends enthusiasts, like understanding grasp the world. But there's still so many people who didn't realize, oh shoot, this box of cards I got has value. Like, what was that thing? It's in this brown cardboard box. There's been so many people who VCon Cards Night was the reason why they got into this world and how they started understanding it and kind of their journey into collecting. And when you have 1,000 people, listen to Jordan Sparks, come on over, watch an awesome Uno tournament and rip some packs and listen to screams and penny sleeves and top loaders everywhere. It was absolutely what we were looking to achieve that night beyond what I could have imagined. I remember, we had set up time to roll out some play mats and have our first playable mats and little rule cards that were on the table. Definitely thought it was gonna be a little more civil, actually. Not tournament vibe, but a little more civil. But it absolutely exploded because that's what cards do. That's why the cards exist, to bring the characters beyond the digital, to bring the community beyond the digital, to have them all in person. Ripping cards at VCon was amazing, and what I believe was a really great entry point for so many people who knew about VFriends but weren't as familiar with the cards, or people who happened to be at the conference, or friends and family to say, gosh, this is something I want to be a part of. And the cards community really took off from there.
Yeah, and I'm totally in that bucket of people that
Awesome.
It just wasn't on my radar. I knew about it. Jeremy did a couple streams that I saw of him opening cards back in the day, but it wasn't totally fully, on my radar. And then I was like, why? That's interesting. They're closing VCon with this cards night. That's interesting. And then when I was there and I felt that I got it, it was you could just feel it.
It was beyond.
So I think Series 2 boxes were going for $140 at the conference.
I don't think it was that low. I might be recalling. I want to say it was 240 more than it is 140.
Oh, really? Okay. I should have double checked that.
No, I also, if they were 140, my goodness. But I think they were a little more.
It was in the ones.
Still simmering a little bit. It was also coming off the national. Or I might be wrong. No, it was May back then. I'm thinking this year. But I think they were a little more, just still, not nearly at the level. And the level of awareness was much lower.
Did you? I know obviously the intentions were clear: premium product versus accessible trading card game. And we'll get into the madness that ensued after. But did it ever take you by surprise how much of the collectability and price of Series 2 got? What if you want to go by price point, or just how people are collecting rainbows now and all of this?
No, I don't think it took me by surprise, but I think I've been really overjoyed by how much of it is like new to, like, these people are learning collecting cards maybe for like the first time. And so to me, I think it's amazing to be able to bring that skill set and mentality into the VFriends world. But it didn't surprise me. I think that the VFriends are collectible characters. It's a collectible ecosystem. It's meant so that people can collect them all or collect the ones that they love and be able to buy a gift or buy something for somebody else. And so I'm still, obviously not financial advice, and goodness, if it is, certainly don't take it from me, but I still see a lot of potential and growth for the VFriends Series 1 and Series 2 cards. And so I'm not surprised by the value of them, though I'm really overjoyed by our ability as VFriends to kind of foster that community and collectibles oriented action in the VFriends world, for lack of a better term. I think it's a really it's what I grew up on. It's what the sports card world runs on. There's still so many differences in good ways, I think, between the sports card world and the VFriends card world, but we've got such an awesome community, and doesn't surprise me, but so glad that one, they do have value, of course, and that people are able to make money on a lot of these cards and buy an NFT and hit a crazy card and sell it. And that never really took me by surprise. I think Series 1 took me by surprise a little bit more than Series 2 did, which is a pretty wild journey on the Series 1 cards. But I think there's such a loyal and active collector base, right? What drives value is collectors. In sports cards, a lot of it's speculation. It's a lot of betting and gambling. In VFriends, I think it's people who genuinely want the cards and want them on their shelves or want them in their pockets or want them in their collection. And that's by far, bar none, the best part of who's collecting these cards in our world.
I love it. I mean, I could talk to you for hours
Of
about
course.
just VCon in of itself, but after VCon, very shortly after VCon, we have streamers. Teacher and Jay are streaming. Josh is streaming. Community breaks are it's collecting steam, collecting momentum, and he gets nicknamed Twitch Gary just because he is not the soft and cuddly guy. He's going at it. It's Jets Sports Gary,
Yes.
which is amazing. He's buying into spots. Just the community's getting closer. People are cheering for each other. People are trading. We're learning about the characters, about the
Of
IP.
course.
People are flipping, arbitrage, the whole thing. And that builds to somewhere in July, 52 people get an email. They're invited to the first ever alpha playtest tournament.
Yes.
It's totally under the radar. You guys aren't releasing this to the public yet, but they learn the rules. They learn how to play. They get an invite to the national. Talk to me about that and just what you were feeling, seeing that unfold, seeing people actually play the
Yes.
game for the first time. This is your baby. You were there from day zero. Take me there.
Yeah, I mean, again, absolutely beyond my wildest dreams, and I'm so excited to talk more about it. I think we wanted to really show up at the national. It's the biggest collectors convention in the world, and so we took a lot of pride in our setup, in our strategy, the super stickers, the animations playing, the cards that we had displayed. So we made a pop we've heard so much. I think it was such a really, maybe more than people realize in the cards world, and some of the conversations we're having on our end, a really big deal for us to be there in that capacity, in that location with that booth. And we wanted to make sure that we did something amazing for our community as well. And what better place to bring together our strongest competitors than with Gary at the largest collectibles convention in the world. And we really bookmarked the national as our key pillar date for our first tournament. When we're doing the gameplay, when we're building out the rule decks, when we're building out, we had all the 52 people who were playing were all invited to a private meet.VFriends with myself and the founder, or not the founder, yes, the founders, but the founders of Super Awesome Games, who collaborated with VFriends on the game rules. And it was the first time. We never put it out on text. We didn't put it out on email. We emailed it afterwards, but like walking people through, here's how the game's going to be played. And I think just kind of swiped over a couple of times to check out like the Discord and like see like, oh, like, are the people who care about the cards happy? And because that's always and always will be the intent. And as soon as I'm like, I see people coming in like, oh guys, like this is good and like this is fun. I'm like, this is exactly what we wanted to see and it's what we anticipated, because it's really important to us. Like people put money into these cards and we see it as, I mean, the trading card game category is bigger than the sports card category. As far as active players, male and female, different age groups. Like, you know, you walk into a Comic-Con or a Gen Con where they play games and it's a completely different, you know, group of people than it is a national. And so we wanted to just really make a splash and most importantly, have the people who cared about the game and about the cards feel happy with where we're going with it. And that's how we selected people at the tournament. We put out an interest form for the national. And we knew that, you know, the main card people who are the biggest collectors and who are the most avid VFriends enthusiasts were going to be at the national and would put in their interest on a form. And so we went in there with like, who are the people who we want to invite? And we invited people based on, you know, their stature in the VFriends world, their collecting, what we've seen, like their activity. And when we had them all in that room, it was really wild because it's also not, I mean, a traditional card tournament, you have months, weeks, many hours of play to get into the final room, so to speak. Like these are thousands of people playing all across the world. It's much more of an organized play thing. And for us, we're like, you know, it's our first tournament. We want it. It's going to be tight knit. It's going to be exclusive. It's going to be fun and premium. And people knew the rules. They studied. They were practicing. I forget who it was, but like they're like, they won at the national one day because they were practicing in their hotel room, and it was really intense. I think that craziest. I mean, it felt like you're in World Series of Poker, right? Like you feel the tension. You have people sunglasses on, sunglasses off, and you're like, this VFriends game is good, right? Like we knew it was because we practiced it a lot. But when you have 52 people actually competing in like March Madness style tournament happening, and the tension and the feel of the room is just like you want to like almost nails on a chalkboard. Like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. But at the same time, like I cannot take my eyes off of what's happening. It was beyond. I mean, I was tense. I knew that it was going to be a bit that way, but the way that people enjoyed it was definitely the highlight. Seeing people hug after they lose is definitely the highlight, right? Like these are VFriends cards that are now being used for like real strategy here, and it's a really I'll go a little bit more story based, but all these characters can now be used to battle, like actually battle, not 1, 2, 3 flip, but like I'm gonna craft my deck. I'm going to use rarity points. I'm going to make sure that I'm curated my cards in the right way. I'm going to practice. I'm going to go against other people for the first time, really. And this is high stakes. I mean, there's a one of a kind prize card at stake, and that's a really big deal. I mean, I'm talking to some people about some of the other. I was at a show recently talking about some other trading card games, and you know, a lot of these cards are much more highly limited. They are using the same art at different tournaments for the prize cards. Like we made a one of a kind card with the perfect Persian cat for the first inaugural tournament. It says that on the card, and that is going to be a really desirable card, not only at the time, but you know, over time, you know, in the long term. And this is high stakes, and Gary's there watching, and it was like, there's videotaping, there's tension, but we're all like, wow, this game works and it clicks, and you can get it in 5 minutes. Like you can understand it fast. It's not a hard journey to understand what's going on, but it's really strategic. It's got a lot of elements that lead a lot of the major card games and playing card games. And most importantly, somebody who's really young and someone who's older can grasp it and play it together. Even Rahul, who came up on top, he's the champion. One, he had to open 107 or something boxes to get that deck.
Yeah.
Like, this game rewards the people who have the strong cards and the strong strategy. And number two, he in his speech said, like, this is the only game that a 4-year-old and a 40-year-old can really go head to head and like understand what's happening.
Right.
At the national, Marshawn Lynch came up to our booth, and a little kid who we've never seen before that day came up to Marshawn Lynch and taught him how to play the game, and they played a match together. And this is a 10-minute span of time. Like, the game is really special because it's numbers based, which is really different from a lot of cards games. It's easy to grasp. It uses a lot of things that people know how to do, but like putting it together in a really unique way. It's a high pressure, and it was just a lot of fun to be in that room and see it come to be. But I think throughout the national weekend, as we had people there with the rules for the first time, it became really clear, even more that this is something that has a lot of legs and can catch the interest of the mainstream. I mean, at the National, we had Pokemon and Magic players playing, and then again at Comic-Con had people playing. And just because it doesn't present the same way as a Magic the Gathering, it doesn't have the mythic cards and or like the crazy back back of the card. Like it doesn't look the part per se. But I think when you sit down and you play, we've heard so many people are like, oh, like this is a good game, and that's what drives the most excitement for us. But that room was amazing. I'm pumped that Rule got the win, and that so many people learned about the card game that weekend. I'm trying to find Marshawn Lynch playing with a kid on the ground, and I'll show it when I find it. But just an awesome weekend and an awesome tournament where I think everyone walked out happy because there's also a really awesome prize card or a participation card that went to everyone. Not a participation trophy, not an 8th place trophy, but more of a thank you for being a part of the community and being here with us type of gift. So I think everyone walked out happy, hugs all around, and a wild night that I don't think anyone will ever forget who was in that building with us.
The energy was palpable, and even you guys put out a great product for the people at home with the stream. Like, yeah, you could just tell it was a special moment. Like sometimes, like with the card night last night at VeeCon 23, you could just tell.
Yeah, I mean, you hope that these things are so beautiful when they're there, and then you kind of have a feel that it's only going to get better over time as you continue to look back. So that's really exciting. I think I found Marshawn playing with the kid. Here he is.
So like
they're battling it out, but
amazing.
We've never seen this person before, and he just learned how to play. And we saw people keep coming back to get packs and going through our single card boxes to find 60s and 70s and a 24 stamina and a 23 aura to add to their deck. So I mean, it was an awesome weekend and definitely exciting to be there that weekend, especially in that tournament.
Unbelievable. And I'm being conscious of your time, but just for in a very short amount of time, like it doesn't get old, but we hear 55-year window. Just in the last 18 months, the stickers, which were born at the National, the pins, the minis, all of these things underneath the card umbrella, and there are quick blips where the pins will have its moment, allow with the Halloween drop, and the minis are a constant. I think underrated. By the way, like let's stick on that. I wish we had 3 hours to talk about each of these, but over the course of 55 years, I think we will. What are we missing with the minis? Gary has said it too. He's like, the minis right now is like when the Series 2 cards drop. Like they're just being overlooked. Like what in your head are we missing with the minis right now?
I am not as involved in the vending business, and I don't want to say anything that I don't feel like I am permitted or should be saying. From a collector's lens, I think that it's just much more. I think 55 years, when you say that, like, gosh, we were so really early. And if these squishies have a lifespan and erode anything close to what our cards may or what our pins may, which obviously we believe that they do, I think that the series season 1, season 2, there's such a great chart of rarities. Like you can get diamond, you can get gold, bubblegum. I don't want to speak on anything that he might be referring to. I don't want to confuse or drive any speculation. I think in my mind, this is still an early pillar of collectibles that could have a lot of legs for VFriends. And so I think about still collecting the first and kind of set collecting the same mindset and same response that I would have if it were cards.
Makes a ton of sense. So all these verticals culminate, and Cardboard Summer culminate in the birth of the VFriends Fanatics Live, when the Fanatics Live era. Just real quick, if you want to go origin story, your expectation at the beginning versus the reality that it's just become this huge pillar in the community where people come to buy or just to hang out and support each other. A quick couple minutes on that. I love that. Also, like, now that I'm thinking about it, it's also a microcosm of your whole career, where it seems like Gary came on strong with you at first, then gave you a whole bunch of rope and said go. That just from an outsider's perspective, that's what it seems. But I'd love to hear you jam on that for like a quick couple.
Yeah, I mean, the Fanatics Live, back when Fanatics Live was in the works for a while with us. And back when it was all cardboard summer in the national, and like, oh, the cards not hype will die down, we knew, and I knew that Fanatics Live was going to start and would be a really strong onboarding tool for people to cards, but then to VFriends. I think Fanatics Live is crafted so that people can have a spark of curiosity and then leads them to learn about the show and the cards in a very human way, in a pretty familiar way with live streaming, an exciting and entertainment way. And then have those people then become VFriends enthusiasts, collectors, and VeeCon attendees. And we've seen a lot of that, and it's been beyond awesome. I think we take a lot of pride and excitement in those shows. And my expectations have been, I think, I had a really good thing in mind with Series 1. I had a really good thing in mind with what Series 2 was going to do. I think Fanatics Live has gone beyond my expectations as far as being able to get more people in the community, but also being able to get really good people in the community, like not just the amount of people, but the human beings who are here. Right? You had Soggy on the pod. The guys like Iben and Whiskey really getting into the cards. Like they weren't even at cards night, right? Like a lot. This is just a very ongoing pillar of growth for us because we are engaging with people on a regular basis. We are working with Fanatics Live to get collectors and card collectors in the chat. Gary is able to push people to something that is human beings on a screen, giving stuff away, opening cards, explaining it, having fun. People be able to find us organically on the app, like just on today. They're like, oh my gosh, the person on today, he bought one pack of cards and he hit a 1 of 1, and he's like, I'm just here. One pack of cards, $35. He's like, I'm a sports collector. I'm on the app. I saw you guys. It looked fun. I grabbed a pack. I'm like, this is just, the thesis really plays out on Fanatics Live. But by far the biggest value prop for myself and for everyone is there is the hundreds of people who are watching alongside with them. And we've seen so many, people grabbing Series 2 NFTs, Series 1 NFTs. Like, our long-term vision is like we need to build a desirable collectible ecosystem, and we are doing everything we can each day to do that, because that will continue to drive and accrue value to those Series 1 and Series 2 NFTs. The more desirable we can make everything, the more well-known these characters can be, the more desirable the collectibles are. The origin comic book, the comic book number 1, the rookie card, or the VFriends Series 1 NFTs. And so I'm a big collector of those myself. Again, pre-Gary. Dating back to pre-Gary, when I'm buying Alert Ape and sending him a selfie like, yo, Gary, I love you type of thing. So we have always our eyes set on how can we just build the most scale for these characters and the most collectability for these characters, and Fanatics Live brings that together. But just the community, the guys, there's a Texas meetup coming up that I really wish that I could be a part of, but excited for them and the community to be there. But it's about entertainment and fun first. It's value to the community who's there with us, because it's a blast, and it's such a good group of people there. It's why the Tune the Moon shows are so fun, and people coming up and talking for hours without even breaking something. But either that or it's how slow Tom rips. But I think it's more of the community. But I'm totally kidding around. But we're advocates of don't spend more than you afford. I hope people know this by now. I hope sometimes I know it can get a little bit overwhelming, especially when Gary's with us. But not wanting people to spend more than they can afford to lose, making sure that the value is there with a lot of giveaways and a lot of resources for people to get started. But gosh, we had someone who discovered live streaming it's a really big deal for us and for Gary. His office where he's got this Twitch stream. There's a lady named Anne who found Fanatics Live through someone else, Shep, in Twitch. And she came over to Fanatics Live, and now her daughter wants more cards, and she wants to get her daughter a creative crap card because she won like the most creative student today. I'm like, gosh, like it's the crossover we want to see. It's all kind of working out in a way that is beyond what I thought it could have been. Going a different, right? We're at the Super Bowl now on the big screen on the Las Vegas Strip with a big sign that has all the VFriends characters and QR codes, and there with Fanatics Live for a big game show. And just a really, beyond my wildest dreams, really, really fun and exciting. I got to give all the credit in the world to Connor also, because Con, the breaker alongside me on Fanatics Live for the most part, absolutely crushes it. We're so lucky to have him and his brother Liam, who are breakers. They did breaking before VFriends, and so it takes a really special type of person to know and understand this community and know and understand the cards and collectibles. And so Connor is a breaker and Liam is a breaker, and both of them helping all those orders get out on time. And Courtney now as well on the cards team. We have such a dedication and a devotion to growing and bringing in good people to host the good people, right? So Courtney is a big Pokemon card and culture enthusiast who's now working on the VFriends cards team and does an amazing job. And Con Man is incredible, and I'm excited for him and Liam and Courtney to host more shows on their own as well. But gosh, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of streaming, and it's a lot of orders, and it's a lot of late hours, and it's a lot of shipping, and it's a lot of customer support. Although thankfully, I mean, these guys rock. So I mean, the customer support is a low percentage, but to bring in and foster that community of kindness and to have the show that we do, I'm really excited about it. And I mean, this is literally, I'm going to unplug this Ethernet. I think I might not need to, but like that black curtain back there is literally the studio, right? So I'm in Gary's office, and like we are here, and this is there's a 360 across the whole building. This is outside because Gary's on the edge here, but it's a work environment, and we're right in the middle at 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock. And like, it's just,
that's amazing.
It's unlike anything else. So I hope that the show continues to grow in more ways than one, but Fanatics Live is awesome. The filter and the flow of community to NFTs got like, so a friend of ours, not a friend, but we met him through Fanatics. His name's Doom or Mutant Doom, Mutant Ape Collector, who got in, just seeing us probably on Gary's timeline. Got some cards, fell in love with Swaggy Sea Lion, and bought a Diamond Series 2 Bold as F Bat. I'm like, gosh, like the flow is of people coming in and the amount of new people who are joining the community every day. We're taking a lot of steps to have that journey be better, new stickers and more info, and really doing what we can to get them to stick around, because it's a great crew to be a part of. So we're trying to build that every day, and Fanatics is amazing, and cannot ask for anything else from that.
And shout out to the team, man. And to your point, it's evident just looking in the spaces, looking the interactions with VFriends cards tweets, the different kind of PFPs from different pockets of Web3 starting to pop in there. Like it's very obvious in your face, the slow transition that's happening. On that point, off the top of your head, do you have any kind of ballpark figure for the amount of giveaways, packages that you guys have sent out since the origin of Fanatics Live?
It's a good question. I honestly, I've thought about putting that together, and I don't right now. I'm probably interested in doing that in the future. It's many hundreds. I think apart from Fanatics Live, we've shipped over around 1,000 free packages to people, or 12, maybe 1,200 or something like that, even apart from Fanatics Live as a whole. So the cards are a great onboarding tool. It's a trading card. It's been around for hundreds of years. It has a value. It's, for the most part, they're graded. And so it's been an amazing onboarding tool for us. New Bitcoin info on Fanatics Live. Shout out to you. But got a free package from Gary and hopped into Fanatics Live and is now a huge part of this community. So like it's that path that we want to continue going on. And also just from a trying to make our name in the world out there, right? So when we're sending out packages, like on the Pat McAfee show right now, you can look at that, and there's an Eager Eagle trading card in front of 80,000 people at all hours of a weekday. And I'm like, it's those things where, you might be, it's on, I don't know how to pronounce his last name today, Nick Kyrgios or Courage, whatever his name is on
Kyrgios.
And Kyrgios.
Yeah.
He posted a VFriends card on his story. And again, like,
did he really?
Yeah. I mean, he might not be actively in Fanatics Live, right? He's a superstar tennis athlete, but we want to continue to build the VFriends brand, and a huge way of doing that is through cards for us. But yeah, so many giveaways, and also crazy things. I mean, 2 Super Bowl tickets on the big game show. Gary's coming in here and grabbing, incredible cards and comics and NFTs and whatever it is. So I mean, we always have a blast. There's never been a show where we've gotten off and like we're tired or we're feeling bad about it, or it's just always such an incredible time. So if no one's joined Fanatics Live, please join us. We're live now really often, 4 to 6 times a week. And hope that you all give it a shot if you haven't already.
And if there's one through line through all my conversations that I've had on this podcast, it's that everything just stems from the top, and Gary's such a giving person, and that's everything that's happening on that show and in the community. Like you guys, like we just mentioned, you guys are giving hundreds, thousands of giveaways, whatever, and the people in there are in turn sending people their first cards.
Oh, it's amazing.
Blessing people with NFTs. Like it's just the way it's supposed to be, and it all starts from the top. So
Well
it's
said.
just it's really magical to see.
Very well said.
Before a couple things, and then we'll get to our last segment first. One of the questions I like to ask everyone is, well, first of all, I think I know, but for the record, do you have a favorite character?
I have a favorite character, which is Gratitude Gorilla, but I wouldn't call myself like a maxi for the character. I have a deep appreciation for a lot of VFriends characters, but I think both for myself, gratitude has been the trait that has aligned me the most with Gary. I don't he's definitely instilled that in me over time, but I think that's why we connect on such a levels, the gratitude and perspective I think that we share. And I think the character is just beyond welcoming. Like I think when you see that character swing, like thinking from a product standpoint, from a bringing people in standpoint, like that gorilla, I kind of just fall like you have characters that you see and you kind of fall in love with. I love the drawing too. I loved him before series two, but when that new artwork came out, like I love the gorilla. I think it resonates a lot with me, and I think gratitude is one of the most important things that I've never been someone who sweats the small thing and can always take a step back and be like, this, like, there are people in a worse position. This situation could be worse. Being grateful for what I do have instead of what I don't. But I wouldn't call like I have a deep appreciation for pretty much every VFriends character. So I would say Gratitude Gorilla is the favorite.
You there? What character do you, Adam Rips, need to spend more time with?
Organized Ostrich. Organized Ostrich. I'm not disappointed by this, and I think it's part of who I am. But I'm the kid whose backpack would never be organized, and homework would be everywhere, and I've got 100 tabs open.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty effective and I'm efficient and I work well, but I think Organized Ostrich would by my side 24/7 would do, or maybe not 24/7, but like 12/5 or something. Having a sidekick Organized Ostrich nearby would be really helpful. That's what comes to mind first.
Okay.
Probably some others, but I'm going with the ostrich.
If your shoes are always untied, you're definitely my spirit animal.
Not
Because that is me.
No, not always untied, although I got called out of the office today. I do sometimes wear them loose though, so I don't have to tie them. That sometimes works too. But I also used to be a Velcro fan with my basketball shoes, and because that was always, I don't like pausing the game to tie my shoes. It's not my thing. So I am going Organized Ostrich locked in.
I love it. What is one thing you've learned from Gary?
My gosh, it's really nice feeling like I've never right hand in the air. I've never had another boss apart from Gary. And it's like the warmest feeling in the world, right? Like I hear things and I have parents and I have siblings. There's never been a kinder and warmer environment to be in. That's why VFriends rocks. It's why working in this office rocks. What I've learned from Gary is like just care for people, care about people, and everything else kind of comes back to you, right? What comes around goes around. I think he has a way of acting. Like he won't tell you. I mean, he's and again, I'm fortunate that he's a bit more of a mentor to me than the thousands of others here at Vayner. But he can be candid and he can tell you and he can speak to you and be really kind with you. But it's always through his actions. Actions speak louder than words. And as long as you care for those around you, things will always work in the right direction, right? So when I'm, don't, oh man, this is probably what I'm really trying to say, but like, don't do something for someone else and the expectation of getting something in return, I think is a really big one. Not sweating little things, right? When Gary says, gosh, I'm botching it, which is not the point of what I'm saying, but 300 trillion to one, the odds of living, right? Like that gratitude of, that test score doesn't matter, that, stain on your shirt doesn't matter, that pimple on your face doesn't matter. Like, as long as people are healthy around you, like, gosh, we have a whole lot in common. And I think the beauty is like, I had a lot of this mindset before really knowing Gary, but he is someone who really empowers that to come out of you and like wants to foster that type of environment around him. So care for those around you, don't sweat the small things, and just really being a good person, doing, acting over saying. I've never had a moment where I'm like, I don't want to work for this person for a long time. So right from the get-go, the people,
That's amazing.
him and the people around him, it's couldn't ask for a better scenario.
Before we get into our quick last segment, micro macro, I want to just quick little gratitude for you for your time. Like, so appreciative. You are doing a trillion things, and Fanatics is just one of them. So I am so grateful for you and for what you do for the community too. And just the example you set, just the way you carry yourself, and just the gamut you run. Like, you're educating people on NFTs 1 year, and now like you're doing the card thing. You got a box on your head. You're having fun.
Yeah.
Just
Thank you.
living the brand. So thankful for you to be on this. Man, we didn't even feel like we didn't even scratch the
No,
surface as deep as we went.
I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. I take a lot of it's. I'm humbled in the position that I'm in, and I take a lot of pride in making sure that I can represent VFriends, and I can be a welcoming face to people. And yeah, I mean, a character that I have spent time with a lot is Adaptable Alien. That's for sure. When you're over here, you gotta adapt. We got a lot of really skilled and talented people, and so I'm happy to be one of them.
I love it. All right, real quick, micro macro Spitfire is
Let's do
quick
it.
of an answer or as deep of an answer as you want to go
Let's do it.
in our last few minutes here. Favorite teacher you had growing up and one reason why?
Great one. Miss McGuire, I think fourth grade teacher, because she made class fun and she was very sports oriented. March Madness brackets. She's a football fan. Really bringing the relationship beyond learning or traditional learning and sitting in a classroom. She made it really fun.
Your favorite piece of VFriends physical memorabilia?
Goodness. All right. I think my favorite piece is, okay, I got it now. I'm going in a million directions. A rare Patient Panda Series 1 card. I actually have I have the gold one of one, but I'm going rare Patient Panda because I kept in my backpack for all of VeeCon. After the first VeeCon, we had a one-day team offsite, and I was able to open a box with Gary on a little boat ride around some offsite in Minneapolis, and I opened the box and we hit the Patient Panda, and it was a really fun moment, and I've got that card to this day. So I'm going rare Panda specifically for that story.
I love it. What was your favorite IP as a kid?
And I'm gonna say we loved a lot of really young cartoons, like things like High Five, and my answer might be Wow Wow Wubsy. I love that little yellow Wubsy. People know Wubsy. Growing up, I think I caught the peak of television for children, like the Drake and Josh, the iCarly. So I liked a lot of that type of stuff. Growing up, I'm sure there were more cartoons that my mom or something would be able to name that I'd watch in the car. But I'm going to lock in, weirdly enough, Wow Wow Wubsy. It's the only thing that's coming to mind right now. It's a smaller IP and more of a niche show, but I love that. I love that a lot growing up.
Favorite movie?
I wish there was a movie watching Magpie or something, because I don't watch many movies, and that's a character I'd love to spend more time with. I'm going to go Moneyball as my favorite movie because I grew up really wanting to be working in sports in a business capacity. So I'm going to go Moneyball.
I think that's an underrated movie. Bigger upside, in your opinion, as a collector,
Yep.
UFC cards or pickleball?
I'm going to go UFC cards because I think pickleball doesn't bring upside. I think value, and I think value is really about people who are willing to spend money and a bit more of a quote unquote degenerate behavior type of thing. And I see pickleball as a very, maybe more growth in the sport. But as far as cards and values, I go with UFC because I think it attracts more of that gambling audience, and that's where a lot of the card values come from.
What VFriend needs to be voted into the White House in 20?
Gosh, I remember you asking this to someone else, and I had a good answer, and I'm not going to remember it anymore. I'm going to go straightforward because I have a better answer, and I might think of it later, but I'm going to go Knowing Gnome. I think if you got someone knowledgeable in there, you got someone who's wise beyond their years. Maybe not as wise as some of the candidates, years wise, but someone who is wise and can work his way around and know where the states are on a map. I'm going to go Knowing Gnome.
Friends, Full House, or The Office?
Did you know these are my 3 favorite shows ever?
I had an inkling.
Good. I'm there could not have been a better group of shows. All time I'm going Friends. It's taught me the most. I loved it in middle school, especially. It's my background show. I know the words to most of the episodes, kind of line by line. I'm going Friends from a show standpoint, but if I had to only watch one show for the rest of my life, I'm going The Office because I catch new things in that show and I appreciate new things in that show every time I watch it. And I think I know Friends too well, and it's a little more story and 9 seasons of that as it is The Office, which is gosh, every episode you kind of forget things that happen, and it's just so witty and fun. So Friends, all-time favorite show, but The Office might be a little more entertaining at this point.
Would you, and you have an interesting perspective, but I'm going to still ask you, would you rather have a 2-hour dinner experience with Gary, group dinner experience, or a 15-minute one-on-one?
Yeah, group dinner. Gary brings together a great dinner table, and it's about meeting the people around you. And so when it's Gary and he's fostering those people, or if you're able to bring those people in, to meet Gary, both of those are great circumstances. And I think you get a lot of value as if you were one-on-one. That's why he has like these group sessions a lot, right? When he's doing the 4Ds or he's doing a speech, like you get value by listening, and listening for 2 hours is better than listening for 8 minutes if you're talking for 7 and he's talking for 8. So 2 hours.
And lastly, what is the one question that sticks out in your mind as being a great question for Gary, or what should you ask Gary if you have one question, one shot?
Yeah, I mean, it's different for every single person because he's someone who can empathize and has been talking to so many people and has been an operator of a 2,000 person company and can offer really strong advice. And when you have the moment with Gary, he wants it. He doesn't want the generic thing. He wants to know how he can help you. He loves people. He wants to make an impact. And so you need to ask the question when you can, that you want to learn, if it's for your business, if it's for your family, if it's for your relationship. One of the ones for me was because he's talked about it, and we have generally pretty similar lifestyles at that point. But it was like, what would you have done different, in your younger age? And he's like, I could have taken a day off, or I could have played some more video games, or I could have been a kid a little bit more. So that's the one that I asked him in my circumstance, because I think it made the most sense for both of us. And the right answer is like you ask what means the most to you in that period of time for whatever it may be.
Amazing. Adam, again, I can't say it enough, but thank you. It's amazing the work that you guys have done, and just the way you're doing it in the process, and just being a great face forward ambassador to what you guys are trying to do. It's super meta and super awesome to watch, and so thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm a fan. I'm excited to look back at all of these episodes in 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years from now, and hopefully look back and laugh at some things and just say what a time it was. We thought we'd done a lot now. I hope it continues to reflect and snowball more and more over time. But thanks to everyone for listening. I really appreciate it, and thanks, Rob, for having me on.
Talk soon.
Likewise.